Man, Sam, can you remember the last time we were here? Like it was yesterday, bro.
Oh boy, Sammy, I wonder what kind of adventure we'll have in this hotel. I hope we meet some kids our age. What the hell are you doing?
Billy!
No, nuh-uh. Y'all about to go kill God himself. We don't have time to waste with all this flashback bullshit. You get your asses back to the bunker right now, masters, and you get to training Jack. Don't give me that look. Go on now. Ain't nobody got time for this nonsense.
You know, I hate having to use the generic Reaper figure to represent Billy, but it's all I can find at the moment. If anybody has any suggestions, or I can get a Funko Pop figurine of Billy or something like her fairly soon, I'd be much obliged. So, what's there to say about this episode? Well, you can sum it up as a little bit of It, with a bit of The Shining, and topped off with a Lord of the Rings solution. Of course, the big question is, this close to the end of the show, why are we bothering with a hotel mystery? Well, did you know that every showrunner has had a flashback episode involving the boys? Obviously, Kripke had several as he was setting up the world and characters. Sarah Gamble had 703, The Girl Next Door. Carver gave us 907, Bad Boys. Andrew Dabb was the only one lacking such an episode during his run until now. And obviously, I mean an episode where what happened to the boys while they were young is a major element of the plot, not just that their younger versions appeared. And I will say, I'm not going to talk about the young actors and their performances and all. They were at least acceptable. Their hairstyles were almost exact copies of how the boys' hairs are now. The gold standard was probably After School Special, where the two younger actors have haircuts that look like they were the beginnings of what they would grow into when they were adults, without being exact copies. I'll admit, part of the issue is that I can barely remember this episode. It's pretty forgettable, with the most memorable part of it being the hotel decor. I keep asking myself, why? Why doesn't this episode click? Well, let's take a moment and examine. Why would the show do a flashback episode? Why do we care about what the boys did when they were kids? Because it should explain their character. When the show gives us a glimpse into their past, we assume that we are being shown an important event which led to the formation of the guys as adults. The episode Something Wicked shows us a moment that Dean probably resolved to never let anything bad happen to Sam again. The episode A Very Supernatural Christmas shows us the moment Sam realized Dean was more his father than John was. Even post-Kripke, The Girl Next Door showed us the start of Sam's luck of always falling for a monster girl. Or the episode Bad Boys, which showed us the chance Dean had in a normal life, and the moment he chose the hunter's life and looking out for Sam instead. Even in the prequel comics, which I have reviewed, links in the description, we see important moments in John's life and how those went on to shape him and how he went on to raise the boys. So, what do we get this episode? It took me a bit to think about because the episode doesn't quite make it clear. But what we watched was the first time the boys had friends who knew about their hunter life. In essence, muggles inducted into their inner circle. This is where, in my opinion, the episode made its biggest misstep. This should have had more impact. This should have been a much bigger deal. We probably forget about it now because the show has spilled the beans to civilians so often you start to wonder that half the country doesn't know the truth about monsters by now. But think back across what we were shown through the years. Cassie Robinson was such a big deal in episode Route 666 because she was a girl Dean had told the truth to. Even after he was with Lisa, even though she knew the truth because of the episode The Kids Are All Right, Dean still tried to keep the hunting life separate from her. In After School Special, young Dean is clearly dying for someone to know the truth, to recognize what he and his family does, but he can't tell the girl he's making out about it and only shouts, "I save lives! I'm a hero!" And it goes without saying that you can make a drinking game of all the time Sam flips out over being called a freak. So you add all this together, and that's when you realize this episode should have been the one to reveal why both of them act this way over the years. The problem is, it doesn't. We end on a happy note of departure with the friends. As much as I hate to say it, I think that's where it all went wrong. The scenes of the kids all gathering together, here we go, and working together as the case, that was brilliant. Marking the map out with candy and checking newspapers, mwah, perfection. All we needed was for a dog to be thrown in, and we could have gone full Scooby-Doo reference. The problem lies in what follows. The setup is perfect. You have an adorable girl right at the age Dean would be crushing on and trying to date. Meanwhile, Sam would have had someone close to his age and a chance at like the first real friend he's ever had. But we don't see any of that. Dean, he acts a little macho in an effort to impress the girl, but we don't see them make any of that awkward, fumbling efforts at a relationship that kids that age do. Trying to hold hands or something. Sam and Travis, well, they play a game of Boggle, but they act distant, not like friends. What this episode needed to show us was a Dean with a first love, and Sam with his first friend, and then those bonds being broken by the monster. We needed to see Dean nervous around Caitlin, maybe trying to hold her hand or work up the courage to give her a kiss on the cheek, and then the monster ruining it, driving Caitlin to push Dean away and demanding to never see him again. A moment in his youth that would teach Dean if he ever wanted to find love, he could never let hunting touch it. We needed to see Sam making his first real friend besides Dean. He needed to bond with Travis over a common interest and have fun playing with toys and games like a normal kid's that age. Then, when the monster ruins everything and traumatizes Travis, we need to see him lash out at Sam and call him a freak, making Sam hypersensitive to that insult for the rest of his life. You could have still had the youngsters playing investigators. Indeed, it would have even encouraged the effort, as it would give Dean and Caitlin more time to get closer and Sam and Travis more time to bond as friends. It would have served to build up a false hope in Dean and Sam that being hunters didn't have to mean being alone, which would then make it harsher when it all comes crashing down. Had this episode pulled all this off, it would have put a real punch in its position in this season. Sam and Dean would have been driving off to confront this piece of their youth because it was one of the few loose ends of their lives here before the end. A chance to find forgiveness and acceptance from the first people they remember rejecting them. That's what we could have had. Instead, the story was just another hunt. I wonder if maybe the episode was attempting a bookend effort, with the series' last Monster of the Week episode chronicling the boys' first ever Monster of the Week. Certainly the ending in the flashback where young Sam and Dean are saying goodbye to the grateful young Caitlin and Travis is presented in a very similar style as many of the Monster of the Week episodes endings in the first season. I can appreciate that on some level. The bigger issue is with the show in the endgame now, which is more important? Should this episode have commented upon the show itself as a whole, or should it have commented upon the characters? I leave it for you to decide and discuss in the comments. I personally would have preferred more of an examination of the characters and less a sort of meta moment. I did appreciate that in the car ride back, Sam and Dean had an honest and real argument between them. It worked. It made sense with the characters. It still bugs me in these talks, though, that Sam never seems to bring up what Chuck showed him about the future. Remember the days of the show when they would take Sam's vision of the future seriously? I just wish we could get a real conversation with Dean expressing his desire to be free and Sam pointing out that desire could spell doom for the rest of the world. It just seems like something that needs to be addressed. Anyway, I'm scoring this episode as another 3 out of 5 shells. It wasn't terrible or canon breaking by any means, but it wasn't as powerful or memorable as it could have been. We've only got 4 episodes to go now. See you soon.